Hi, and welcome back to Regaining the Balance, guys. This is Matt, your host, and today we'll be looking into the Egyptian Proverbs of Luxor. And came across this not too long ago, and I thought it was kind of interesting. So just wanted to read a bunch of these, and I'm sure you guys are going to notice some very similar sayings here, so to speak. So let's get into it. Let me get to the page, and I forgot to add the link to these, so I'll add it afterwards. But anyways, let's share the. All right, so Egyptian Proverbs. Egyptian Proverbs were a very important part of the ancient religion of Egypt. One of the main religious concepts of the Egyptians had was quote unquote know yourself. Their spiritual aspect of this concept held that within man is the divine essence of the Creator and heaven, and this finds expression in their teaching. The kingdom of heaven is within you, and whoever shall know himself shall find it. Unquote. So yeah, that's written on the walls of Luxor in hieroglyphic. Proverbs were being held as a teaching method for a man to understand the universe. They were inscribed in temples and tombs of Egypt. These inscriptions might be the first holy books known by man, or at least ones that will stand the test of time rather than paper or whatever parchment. So let's get into this. Below are some of the powerful teaching proverbs found in the temples of Luxor. And keep in mind that all the temples in Egypt, every single one of them, are covered in hieroglyphic writing. And there's not even I'm not sure how much of the percentage has been deciphered, but I'm sure it's actually less than 5% of all of it has been deciphered. You can imagine the kind of stuff and knowledge is written on those walls that nobody has any idea about. But we're going to get a little taste of it here, so let's do this. So, getting into the Proverbs, the best and shortest road toward knowledge of truth is nature. For every joy, there is price to be paid. So that is very much a Buddhist type of idea as well, right? If his heart rules him, his conscience will soon take the place of the rod. Interesting. As in controlling rod, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. What are you doing? What you are doing does not matter so much as what you are learning from doing it. Question mark? Okay. It is better not to know and to know what one does not know than presumably to attribute some random meaning to symbols. Uh, I think that's a pretty good statement. If you search for the laws of harmony, if you search for the laws of harmony, you will find knowledge. Yes, indeed. If you are searching for a netter, observe nature. Exuberance is a good stimulus towards action, but the inner light grows in silence and concentration. So here we go again. This idea that we should spend some time alone, concentrating on our interconnectivity of things, getting closer to God, so to speak. Not the greatest master can even go one step for his disciple. In himself, he must experience each stage of developing consciousness. Therefore, he will know nothing for which he is not ripe. And as far as my experience goes in my own spiritual journey, I can tell you that that is absolutely true. The only time I've ever given people really amazing advice that actually helped them is because I went through a lot of the same things myself. It gives you experience is knowledge. Whether if you're willing to learn. The body is the house of God. That's why it is said, "Man, know yourself." Interesting, right? We have the temple. The body is the temple of God, right? In Christianity and probably Judaism as well. True teaching is not an accumulation of knowledge, it is an awakening of consciousness which goes through successive stages. That is also very true. And some of these other books, audiobook readings, like the Philosophy of Fire and the Rosicrucian in their teachings, and also Buddhism and all kinds of other things, this idea of an initiate And being an initiated of religion, you go through different stages of understanding. Same thing with Buddhism and all that kind of stuff. So here we go, another universal kind of proverb we see all over the place. The man who knows how to lead one of his brothers towards what he has known may one day be saved by that very brother. Indeed. People bring about their own undoing through their tongues. I think we can all agree about that one, right? If one tries to navigate unknown waters, one runs the risk of shipwreck, which is an interesting allegory. Obviously, if you're trying to do something, then of course then you run the risk of failing doing that thing or looking for that thing. Which is part of the journey, right? It's part of the going through consciousness through successive stages. That's part of it. Leave him in error who loves his error, indeed, and don't have a connection with it. If you don't agree with somebody, who cares? You don't have to sit here and call them this or that or whatever else, right? It just makes you, I don't know, it turns on that anger in some people when they feel they must correct people constantly. Every man is rich in excuses to safeguard his prejudices, his instincts, and his opinions. Yep. I mean, these two definitely, they must have been written right next to each other. To know means to record in one's memory, but to understand means to blend with a thing and to assimilate it oneself. Agreed. Because once you understand and know something, especially on the spiritual level, it's not enough just to know it, but it's something else to actually use it in your everyday life, which I can tell you is definitely a truth, at least in my own experience. There are two kinds of error: blind credulity and piecemeal criticism. Never believe a word without putting its truth to the test. Discernment does not grow in laziness. Exactly. And this faculty of discernment is indispensable to the seeker. Sound skepticism is the necessary condition for good discernment, but piecemeal criticism is an error. I couldn't agree with that more. Love is one thing, knowledge is another. Yes, but to get knowledge, one has to love, so you can't really have one without the other. True sages are those who give what they have without meanness and without secret. Yes, and this is why almost all sages throughout history are hated by a priest class who want to hold on to these secrets because they consider the rest of us profane and ignorant. An answer brings no illumination unless the question has matured to a point where it gives rise to this answer, which thus becomes its fruit. Therefore, learn how to put a question. Right? I like that one. What reveals itself to me causes to be mysterious for me alone. If I unveil it to anyone else, he hears mere words which betray the living sense. Profanation, but never revelation. And this is what I mean about the whole profane thing, right? And this is why a lot of the religious controllers of every age and every type of religion all end up degenerating to this kind of idea where they have to keep the truth from us. But the part of the truth and the part of the reason why they call people profane is because they can try to explain something like this, which is an abstract idea, and people don't understand it and their eyes glaze over. And so there you go. That's why it says here, he hears mere words which betray the living sense, right? It's not easy explaining these kinds of things, which is why humanity has had such issues doing it for millennia. And partly because the real truth has always been hidden from us. So, continuing. The first concerning the secrets, all cognition comes from inside. We are therefore initiated only by ourselves, but the master gives the keys. So the master being more than likely God, right? But in order to understand any of these secrets, again, know thyself. The kingdom of heaven is within you. All those things, like what I just said earlier about the initiation, even in the process of initiation and a lot of these secret organizations they're all based off of just life itself and conflict and challenging our quote unquote passions, you know what I mean, and things of that nature. So this is very true. First, concerning the secrets, all cognition comes from inside. We are therefore initiated only by ourselves, but the master gives the keys, right? So the second, concerning the quote-unquote way, which is interesting and very Buddhist, The seeker has need of a master to guide him and lift him up when he falls, to lead him back to the right way when he strays. Kind of sounds like the poem of Walking on the Sand, right? Uh, there were two footsteps and then there were one. Understanding develops by degrees. Again, we have this idea of degrees again, you see? This is important because it's true. And you can't swallow all this all at once. You have to take it in by piece by piece. Just part of the reason why I'm doing all these various videos, to give you guys little bits and pieces of it. And hopefully those dots will start to connect on your own. So, as to deserving, know that the gift of heaven is free. The gift of knowledge is so great that no effort whatever could hope to deserve it. Exactly. You don't deserve knowledge. You have to go and find it. You have to experience it. But again, the gift of heaven is free. I like that one too. If the master teaches what is error, the disciple's submission is slavery. If he teaches the truth, the submission is ennoblement. Wow. Well, this one line right here encapsulates the entire situation that we're in right now. Okay, and part of the reason I'm doing these videos, and also like the whole, the studies in Phoenicia and the early civilizations and religions, and this idea of maybe Jesus was a Phoenician and not a Hebraic or whatever. And boy, do I have some extra stuff to give to you guys soon. But the thing is if the very basis of what they teach us about this amazing person Yahshua is actually false, then and then they submit the opposite kind of teaching to the dogma, then what you get is slavery, right? Makes kind of sense, because of this whole idea that we only have one life to live. The entire deck of cards of life are stacked against us, and if we don't, surmount that deck of cards, well, then we'll spend the rest of our soul's eternity in hellfire, which to me has always been an issue. But that is a dogma of slavery, not of ennoblement. It doesn't free you; it keeps you in fear. So I, very much agree with this proverb here. And it's one to kind of look at through the prism of looking into spirituality and religions across the world. Continuing, there grows no wheat where there is no grain. Interesting. So if there's no seeds to grow, then there will be no, harvest, quote unquote, to profit by. Spiritually, that is. The only thing that is humiliating is helplessness. Indeed. An answer if profitable in proportion to the intensity of the quest. And it's also very true, physically and spiritually. Listen to your conviction, even if they seem absurd to your reason. Yeah, okay. This is, talking about intuition here. Know the world in yourself. Never look for yourself in the world, for this would be to project your illusion. To teach one must know the nature of those whom one is teaching. Yep. What can I say? In every vital activity, it is the path that matters. Agreed. The way of knowledge is narrow. Yep. Each truth you learn will be for you as new as if it had never been written. And this is also true because, again, in your own spiritual journey, when you have your epiphanies and you have your moments of quote unquote blinding brilliance, it's I laugh, but at the same time, it's something else, and it's one of those things where when you do experience things like that, you can't really throw it out the window and ignore it. At least I don't think you can. Each truth you learn. Oh yeah. Okay. So continuing, the only active force that arises out of possession is fear of losing the object of possession. And here we have another very Buddhist idea, right? This is talking about our attachments. And, they talk about object of possessions. They're not necessarily 100%. They are talking about physical possession, but we also have our own mental hang-ups and possessions that we can't seem to let go. If you defy an enemy by doubting his courage, you double it. Yeah. The nut does not reveal the tree it contains. That's very much like the mustard seed parable, isn't it? For knowledge, you should know that peace is an indispensable condition of getting it. And I would absolutely agree to this. That is the whole reason why meditation and prayer is so important. The big problem is that a lot of churches don't teach you how to meditate. People's idea of prayer is bowing their heads and whatever, but it's more to it than that. It's getting to that deep peace where you really do start to feel something, and your mental capacities expand in ways that are actually pretty amazing. And I learned to do that actually by because I grew up Catholic, and I learned how to meditate by praying the Rosary. And I'll probably do a whole video about the idea of meditation and whatever else, but that taught me how to truly meditate. I always prayed from when I was a kid and all that, but when I meditated, that's really changed everything for myself. And it was under the guise of Christianity. I mean, they have their own prayer beads, they have their mantras. That's what all that when you pray the Rosary, that's what it really is. It's Christian mantras, essentially. So continuing, the first thing necessary in teaching is a master. The second is a pupil capable of carrying on the tradition. Peace is the fruit of activity, not of sleep. Envious greed must govern to possess, and ambition must possess to govern. Hmm. Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I, I can see that being a truth. It's a good proverb. When the governing class isn't chosen for quality, it is chosen for material wealth. Ooh, this is a good one. This always means decadence, the lowest stage a society can reach. Wow. I mean, this is definitely a theme I've been hammering on for quite some time, guys, because this whole materialistic ideology that's been shoved down our throats our entire lives since the mid 1800s has given us the society we have today. And yeah, I mean, there's not much else to really say there. All you got to do is look around. One foot isn't enough to walk with. Okay. Our senses serve to affirm, not to know. That's a very good point. That's a very, very good point. We mustn't confuse mastery with mimicry, knowledge with superstitious ignorance. I agree. Physical consciousness is indispensable for the achievement of knowledge. Well, you're here, so you have to use your physical qualities, i.e., that's why this one here, our senses serve to affirm, not to know, makes sense as well. A man can't be a judge of his neighbor's intelligence. His own vital experience is never his neighbor's. Yes, and you may notice that this theme is very much also in the Bible in of itself. Love thy neighbor. Do not judge lest ye be judged. Right? Because the real thing about judgment, which I can honestly do an entire show on. But the thing about judgment is that we think we can judge people about stuff in life, but the reality is that we haven't lived their lives. We have no idea the infinite amount of things that those people have experienced to form them as the spiritual, mental, physical person they are today. And by judging people, you literally just whitewash that entire fact and think that you can be accurate in the judgment of another person, when the reality is you could never really be accurate, which makes judgment futile, really, in the end. At least that kind of judgment. There are other types of judgment. Judgment could be used in a correct way, but that takes a bit more of an understanding, especially behind some of these proverbs. Because to judge, you can judge people by their faults, or you can judge them by the fact that, they are experiencing life just like you're experiencing life. And by judging someone else, you're literally judging yourself as well, because we all have the same qualities in humanity here, right? Continuing. I mean, I have so much more to say about that point, but the idea that you can't judge people accurately is something I absolutely 100% understand and believe. And I've taken a lot of that out of my own life, which has really created a much more peaceful existence as far as the people around me. So I'm sorry, continuing. No discussion can throw the light if it wanders from the real point. True. Your body is the temple of knowledge. There you go. Another reference to the body being the temple. Experience will show you a master can only point the way. That is also correct, because you have to take your own steps of knowledge and initiation in your life, because life is initiation. So whether you do it or not is up to you. A house has the character of the man who lives in it. Yes, idea that obviously this is a metaphor for you, and your character is based on the ideas and the experiences that you've lived your entire life that have formed you. Some of those are good, some of those are bad. Well, let's just say some of them are positive, some of them are negative, not necessarily bad, because everything can be looked at one way or the other. But the whole idea is that your character, who you are, is a product of your experience. And putting that experience into perspective is really the first kind of steps in any spiritual initiation. It starts with the simple stuff. So, like for instance, things that you get annoyed at. Do you get angry just like your father or your mother get angry over things, stupid things, people cutting you off, not doing the dishes, this, that, whatever else? Like, how often does your like preconceived notions about things affect your attitude towards stuff? And where did you learn that from? Is it really yours, or did you just adopt that as a I don't know, like something like a programmable tick that comes out? That's why some people get super mad at certain types of subjects or comments, and they'll fly into a rage. And realistically, is that really them, or did they really just kind of learn that from their past? And deconstructing that is really kind of like, quote, it's like detoxifying your soul in a lot of ways. Because you separate what your true decision is versus your automatic pre-programmed decisions that you seemingly don't have control over. And I think this house has the character of the man who lives in it is an actual great proverb in that sense. Continuing, all organs work together in the functioning of the whole. There we go. We have another throw out to this idea that we are all seemingly different souls, but part of a higher connection, a higher thing. Allegory, of course. A man's heart is his own netter. Indeed, a pupil may show you by his own efforts how much he deserves to learn from you. Routine and prejudice distort. Let me read that one again, since my phone just went off. A pupil may show you by his own efforts how much he deserves to learn from you. Routine and prejudice distort vision. Each man thinks his own horizon is the limit of the world. Indeed. Some really wise proverbs here, I have to say. If you will free yourself when you learn to be neutral, oh my goodness, and follow the instructions of your heart without letting things perturb you, this is the way of Mat. Whatever Mat is. I'm not sure what Mat is. But yeah, I mean, this right here is a very excellent proverb. I would read this over and over again. Judge by cause, not by effect. Okay, yep. Exactly. That's what I was just saying earlier, guys, about the idea of judgment, too. Because if you can't understand the cause of why people do things, then how can you actually judge them correctly? It's not the things that they're doing at the moment. It's really about how did they, what was the reason why they did or said things? You know what I mean? There's always a much deeper understanding behind most people, even in the simple kind of pre-programmed reactions they have in life. So continuing, growth in consciousness does not depend on the will of the intellect or its possibilities, but on the intensity of the inner urge. Very, very, very important. Every man must act in the rhythm of his time. Such is wisdom. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is why I respect all different religious ideas, because they are all rooted in some truth. They've all been distorted to a certain extent, but you can reach that spiritual guidance in whatever type of religion you might follow. You just have to learn how to take it on your own time. Take your own steps. Let your intuition sort of guide you, because it's the only way that you'll actually experience that kind of knowledge and that kind of wisdom. Because it is experience. You have to experience it in life. Continuing, men need images. Lacking them, they invent idols. Better than to found the images on realities than to lead the true seeker to the source. Better than to found the images on realities. Oh, okay. Then lead the true seeker to the source. Interesting. Mott, who links universal to terrestrial. Ah, okay. So essentially, um, this is like the Holy Spirit in a way. The divine within the human is incomprehensible to the cerebral intelligence. Let me read that one again. Mott, who links the universal to terrestrial. The divine with the human is incomprehensible to the cerebral intelligence. And that's why it's so difficult to express the idea of spirituality in words. And again, millennia that we have been trying to discover and understand that kind of stuff. But again, it's not something that you can express in words. You have to learn through life, being, through your experience. Have the wisdom to abandon the values of time that has passed and pick out the constituents of the future. An environment must be suited to the age and men to their environment. Okay. Wisdom to abandon the values of a time that has passed and pick out the constituents of the future. Yes, indeed. Okay. Yeah. So essentially, drop all the old stuff that doesn't make sense anymore, and the environment for your future will be on what you learn, which is good from the past, and you drop the stuff from the past that is not something you need, which is just exactly what I was saying about religions. There's plenty of truth in all of it, but there's a lot of stuff you have to sift through in order to really understand and experience. But having the wisdom to abandon the values of a time is important, right? Because, there's a lot of BS out there. So, and the thing is that the more people defend their dogmas, the more you realize that they don't really have the ability to abandon their old ideas. For me, I've changed my mind so many times, it's not even a problem. Continuing, everyone finds himself in the world where he belongs. The essential thing is to have a fixed point from which to check its reality now and then. Indeed, that's a very good point. Always watch and follow nature. I would agree with that. A phenomenon always arises from the interaction of complementary. If you want something to look for, the complement that will elicit it. So Seth causes Horus. Horus redeems Seth. Oh, I see. Again, it's that snake eating its tail kind of idea, right? The Ouroboros. All seed answer light, but the color is different. The plant reveals what is in the seed. Exactly. Again, back to the mustard seed parables, that kind of thing. Popular beliefs on essential matters must be examined in order to discover the original thought. True. It is the passive resistance from the helm that steers the boat. Indeed. Hear that? The passive resistance. The key to all problems is the problem of consciousness. I couldn't agree more. Yep. Because, if you think about it, the things we hate, the things we're told to hate, the things that we're convinced to do things like go to war with people or murder and do all these other things, cheat people, all these other stuff, it's all based on consciousness, guys. Based on the ideas of how we run our societies, what we think is true, all those things, and why those things will eventually swallow us whole or free us completely or somewhere in between. So, look around life. Turn on the TV. Tell me that's not true. Man must learn to increase his sense of responsibility and of the fact that everything he does will have its consequences. Indeed. And that's just not just in the physical life itself, but your spiritual responsibility as well. There's something to say about that. And the consequences that come from having a spiritual responsibility are really quite beautiful. Continuing, if you would build something solid, don't work with the wind. Always look for a fixed point, something you know that is stable. Yourself. Yet again, bringing it back to you guys. And you see, it's interesting because out of all these proverbs, they're not, it's about you, right? It's about you taking that self journey of yourself. And it's about, like, tearing yourself apart in a lot of ways and putting yourself back together again. So continuing, if you would know yourself, again, take yourself as a starting point and go back to its source. Your beginning will disclose your end. I got a lot to say about that point, but I'm going to leave that the way it is and let you guys mull on that one. Images are nearer reality than cold definitions. And I would kind of agree with that. Because, images in art can transcend ideas, whereas cold definitions become this argument of words and etymology and all these things, where an image can express something much, much, much higher in terms of just mere words. Continuing, seek peacefully, you will find. Indeed. Organization is impossible unless those who know the laws of harmony lay the foundation. Wow. Now, I have to say that I've made a point on many different videos about the fact that the people who control or play the game of control across the world, they understand this concept and like a thing like and just as an example, imagine something like a hammer, for instance, you can build something with it, or you can destroy something with it, or you can kill somebody with it. Like, it's a tool. It can be used in any way you want to, and it's the same thing with this idea that the laws of harmony, like, all they have to do is harmonize it their own way and create their own quote unquote harmonization, and then the rest of people follow it. The organization follows through with that. And that's really the real clue here. That's why materialism and this whole Darwinian kind of mechanistic universe type of idea is what's taught. It's been taught to us since the mid 1800s. And this materialistic idea has been shoved down our throats this whole time. And that's the harmony, quote unquote. That's the foundation that they set for us, guys, because they know that's how human nature works and consciousness works. And they're using that idea against us, and we don't even know it. And that's the funny thing, in which when you kind of wake up to those ideas, you kind of reject so many things, and you start making your own decisions. But I think this is a very important proverb to remember, especially in terms of how these quote unquote self-titled elites, because honestly, I don't like giving them any kind of howdy titles, because they're nothing to me, honestly, and they don't control my soul anymore. I can tell you that much. So, continuing, it is no use whatever preaching wisdom to men. You must inject it into their blood. Yeah, well, okay. I think that's an interesting allegory. Knowledge is consciousness of reality. Reality is the sum of the laws that govern nature and of the causes from which they flow. Indeed. Social good is what brings peace to family and society. I agree with that. And you're only going to get that when your foundation of harmony is built on social good and not on greed, materialism. Continuing, knowledge is not necessarily wisdom. And that's also very true. By knowing, one reaches, because wisdom is you gain wisdom by experience, and only by experience. By knowing, one reaches beliefs. I'm sorry. By knowing, one reaches belief. By doing, one gains conviction. When you know, dare. Altruism is the mark of a superior being. All is within yourself. Know your most inward self and look for what corresponds. Excuse me. All is within yourself. Know your most inward self and look for what corresponds with it in nature. Yes. I have so many anecdotal stories to tell you guys about this proverb in my own life, but nature responds. When you change, nature responds. And one of the things you will notice is that children and animals will respond to you very fast, in a very positive manner. And I can't tell you how many dogs and cats I have met over the past 5-6 years, where their owners are absolutely astounded that they didn't scratch my face off or bite my leg off. And I attribute that only to the fact of my very much more peaceful nature than what I used to be like, which was quite the chaotic individual. I'm a very different person now than I used to be, and a lot of things in nature respond to me differently. Because certainly in my past, like dogs used to go crazy. Of course, I have a beard and I wear a hat all the time, so maybe that's it. But they don't seem to respond to me the same way nowadays. And I think this proverb explains that to me, at least to my own knowledge and experience. So continuing, the seed cannot spurt outwards without simultaneously sending out roots into the ground. Right? It's a good analogy. The seed includes all the possibilities of the tree. Here we go, guys. This is the mustard seed right here. The seed will develop these possibilities, however, only if it receives corresponding energies from the sky. So, from above, i.e., God. Grain must return to the earth, die and decompose for new growth to begin. Reincarnation. Man, know yourself, and you shall know the gods. So, that's the end of that little bit, but I just wanted to show you guys that at Luxor, all of this, Luxor is covered wall to wall, all over the place with writing. And the little tiny bit of writing that is all over Egypt is really it's the amount of it's so tiny that's been deciphered, and I mean, I wonder why. Here we have all these proverbs. Some of them sound like they could come straight out of the Old Testament. Some of it sounds like it could come straight out of the New Testament. I mean, if you look at the very top of it, the kingdom of heaven is within you, and whoever shall know himself shall find it. I mean, how much more close does it get to that? You know what I mean? Like, it's a very interesting concept, and it's one that I think that is something that I personally can't ignore, but I think it's really kind of cool. It's just one of those things where there's so much more to like the idea of spirituality, and unfortunately, all religions are just tethers to the rest of us. They want to call us profane. They want to call us ignorant. Well, that's what they tell us, but they're projecting that to us, and then people believe it, and then after that, they're like, "Oh, well, you must be wiser than me, so teach me. Give here, take all my money." And the like. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff, but like looking at this, one of the things Flamenco early on, and I think his first book, his chronology book, he mentioned something that's very interesting. Is that, like, I think I mentioned this earlier in the video, but like you have hundreds of these temples all over Egypt that were buried in sand at some point, and I'm wondering whether that was done on purpose because. If you have all these various things that connect to various other Christian and, well, let's just say Abrahamic faith type of proverbs, then, burying it in sand, because it's considering that all this stuff is written on the wall, seemed to be their only kind of option there. And the fact that they uncovered it and they're like, oh, look at this, Egypt is amazing, blah, 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 blah. But we're not going to bother deciphering any of these writings for you guys for the most part. And that's where we're at right now. So I just wanted to do a quick little video. I'm not sure how quick that ended up being. Hopefully it wasn't too long. 37 minutes. Okay, it's not too bad, I guess. Just do a quick little video about this to show you guys that there's definitely, this knowledge that we hear in all these other books and stuff like that is very old, and it goes back a lot further than Egypt does. So, but here we have it written on the walls of Luxor. Imagine all the other stuff that's possibly written on the walls of Luxor. Or all the other temples. We could have our entire like biblical history right there in front of us, which was probably a very different story than what we're told. So, anyways, I hope that you guys enjoyed that little bit. Some interesting stuff. I will add the link in the description box if you want to take a look at it yourself. Otherwise, if you like the video, hit the like button. Share it if you think other people would enjoy it. And if you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. And I will see you guys in another video very soon. Peace.